EU permanent representatives have formed a special working group that will work on the issue of using frozen and seized Russian assets to support the reconstruction of Ukraine.
In my opinion, the only way to start this process is for all Western states to adopt changes in legislation at the national level that would allow the confiscation of property assets of Russian persons.
Andrius Kubilius, a member of the European Parliament, said that it would be difficult to confiscate the frozen funds because Russian state assets have international immunity.
Countries do not have the right to appropriate the property of another country, the state property. This creates a lot of problems for EU member states that respect international law but want Russia to make amends. The European Commission is looking for a better way. I hope that a clear legal, political and practical decision on the issue will be made soon. Andrius Kubilius, member of the European Parliament, in an interview with Suspilne News.
The Swiss government has refused to confiscate frozen Russian assets because it allegedly violates the constitution and undermines the existing legal order.
A working group representing the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, the State Secretariat for International Finance and the Directorate of International Law under the leadership of the Federal Office of Justice concluded that the expropriation of private assets of legal origin without compensation is not allowed under Swiss law. The confiscation of frozen private assets is contrary to the federal constitution and the current legal order and violates Switzerland's international obligations. From the explanation of the Swiss Federal Council.
However, Switzerland will continue to consider confiscating Russia's central bank foreign exchange reserves and other state assets. Also, the Swiss Federal Council, at its meeting on February the 15th, decided to start an administrative procedure for the confiscation of assets frozen in Switzerland after the Revolution of Dignity in February 2014. In general, this is more than $140 million.
As for the assets that belong to ex-President Yanukovych, we must remember that on the territory of Ukraine, Yanukovych has a verdict in absentia. Therefore, there was a corresponding criminal proceeding. Based on the fact that there is such a verdict, Switzerland, within the framework of such a criminal case, can start the process of confiscation.
At the end of June, amendments to the Special Economic Measures Act went into effect in Canada to allow sanctioned Russian assets to be confiscated and used to help Ukraine. Also, in the United States, in a federal court in Manhattan, it was decided to allow prosecutors to confiscate $5.4 million of the assets of the sanctioned Russian oligarch Konstantin Malafeyev. The confiscated property will be handed over to the State Department to support the Ukrainian people.
This was the precedent that demonstrated confiscated assets can be sent to Ukraine, and the confiscation of such assets is possible, with the subsequent transfer to the restoration of Ukraine is also possible. So all countries should also accelerate in practice of the confiscation and transfer of assets for Ukraine.
With the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the EU and the US froze Russian assets that remained abroad. We are talking about 300 billion euros of reserves of the Central Bank of Russia and 20 billion euros belonging to Russian oligarchs. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Yulia Bil, UATV News.